for rent rain slid down the windows of Mia Turner's car in shimmering ribbons as she scrolled through rental listings on her phone. Everything in the city was either too expensive or already taken. She was 2 weeks into a new job, sleeping in her car, and running out of excuses at work. Then she saw it. Room for rent. Quiet home outside town, $200 a month. The picture showed an ivy-covered 2-story house on a narrow rural road. The message below was brief, seeking a polite female tenant. 1 room available, meals included. Call Mrs. Wright. It looked old-fashioned but safe, and the price was impossible to ignore. Mia called. A thin, quavering voice answered after the 3rd ring. Hello? Yes, dear. I still have the room. Would you like to come by tonight? Something about the woman's accent, soft, proper, almost from another era, made Mia feel calmer. She agreed. By the time she reached the address, the rain had thickened into mist. Headlights cut through rows of ancient oaks before the house appeared, pale siding half hidden by vines, porch light flickering like a heartbeat. Mrs. Wright opened the door before Mia could knock. She was tiny, silver-haired with sharp blue eyes that seemed too alert for her frail frame. Oh, you must be Mia. I've been expecting you. The interior smelled faintly of lavender and something metallic underneath. The old woman led her through a narrow hall lined with portraits. Every painting showed the same face. Younger versions of Mrs. Wright, standing beside strangers who seemed faded, almost erased. The room is upstairs, dear, she said, voice echoing strangely. You'll find it comfortable. I keep my other guest rooms closed. They're in need of repairs. The room at the end of the hall was small but neat. Lace curtains, an oak dresser, and an antique mirror with blackened edges. A porcelain doll sat on the dresser, one glass eye cracked. It's lovely, Mia said. I'm so glad. You're the first tenant in a long time. Mrs. Wright smiled, though the expression didn't quite reach her eyes. Dinner is at 7. I never like to eat alone. The dining room felt frozen in time, a chandelier glowing low, dust catching in the light. Only 2 places were set, yet 4 chairs surrounded the table. 2 of them looked newer, less worn, as if they'd been replaced recently. Mrs. Wright served stew and bread, moving with slow precision. So, Mia, she began, what brought you to our little town? Mia explained about her job and the rent, grateful to have found shelter. Good, Mrs. Wright said softly. It's important to have someone around again. Halfway through the meal, Mia noticed Mrs. Wright glance at the empty chairs and whisper under her breath, Not yet. She's eating. When Mia asked if she'd said something, the old woman smiled politely. Just reminding myself of manners, dear. That night, the wind pressed against the window panes. Around midnight, Mia woke to faint music, a lullaby humming through the walls. Then came footsteps, slow, measured, up the stairs. They stopped outside her door. She held her breath. A creak. A shadow moved beneath the crack of the door, the shape of 2 feet, bare, facing her room. After a full minute of silence, they turned away. The lullaby stopped. Morning light revealed fog on the inside of the mirror, as if someone had breathed against it. In the center was a word written by a finger. Stay. Mia rubbed it off, convinced she'd dreamed it. Downstairs, Mrs. Wright was making tea. Did you sleep well, dear? Mostly. I thought I heard someone walking. Oh, the house settles at night, the woman said. Old homes make odd noises. She handed Mia a cup. When Mia lifted it, she noticed faint red scratches on Mrs. Wright's wrist. Thin lines, almost like fingerprints. After work, Mia returned to find the house unlit. Only the basement door stood open. A thin glow spilling out. Mrs. Wright? She called. No answer. She stepped closer. A draft carried up from below. Cold, smelling of wet earth and rust. From deep within came a rhythmic sound, like whispering voices layered over each other. A sudden hand clamped her shoulder. Mrs. Wright stood behind her, smiling too widely. Oh dear, that part of the house is unsafe. You must never go down there. Her grip lingered longer than necessary before she released it. Later that evening, Mia studied one of the hallway portraits again. She was sure it hadn't been there the night before. It showed Mrs. Wright beside a young man and woman, both smiling stiffly. But the faces of the couple were gray and faded, while the old woman's colors looked freshly painted. Beneath the frame in dust, A faint handprint pressed outward from the wall. Mia touched it. The wallpaper was damp. She pulled her hand away. A faint heartbeat pulsed through the wall, slow and deliberate. Mia's phone buzzed that night with a message from an unknown number. "Do not sleep in that room." She blinked. When she looked again, the message was gone. Only her reflection stared back from the dark screen. And for half a second, another face smiled behind hers. Morning came gray and heavy, the kind of daylight that doesn't warm. Mia woke to the sound of humming again, faint, steady, coming from downstairs. When she stepped into the hall, she noticed something new. The air smelled faintly of bleach. And one of the older pictures, the one of the couple beside Mrs. Wright, was gone. In its place was a different portrait. Now only Mrs. Wright, alone, her painted smile a little wider. She frowned. Maybe she's redecorating. But the space on the wall behind the frame was spotless, the wallpaper newer than the rest. It was like the picture had always been there. After breakfast, while Mrs. Wright was in the garden, Mia noticed a key dangling from a nail near the basement door. It was small and old, with rust around its teeth. She didn't mean to take it, not at first. But her fingers moved before she could talk herself out of it, slipping it into her pocket. When she went upstairs to dust, Mrs. Wright had politely suggested tenants help with chores. She found an old trunk under the bed. It opened with the same key. Inside was a leather diary. Brittle with age, the handwriting was fine and slanted. October 12, 1962. Eleanor refuses to eat again. She says she sees someone watching from the mirror. I told her it's just the house. The house watches over us all. November 3rd, 1962. He's gone. Took his things in the night. The house is quiet now. Too quiet. December 1st, 1962. The house said it needs someone new. I understand now. The last page was blank except for a reddish-brown smear, as if someone had dragged their thumb across it. That night, Mrs. Wright set the table again. Same 2 plates. Same empty chairs opposite. Mia decided to push a little. "Your husband," she began softly. "Was he in those pictures downstairs?" Mrs. Wright's spoon froze midair. Her eyes flicked up, too calm. "My husband's been gone a long time, dear. The house and I are all that's left." Mia tried to laugh it off, but she could feel something under the floorboards, a faint vibration, almost like breath. When the old woman cleared the table, she paused, looking toward the empty chairs again. Then she whispered, "Not yet." "She's still here." Around midnight, Mia's phone rang again. No number. Just a single word flashing on the screen. "Basement." Her hand trembled. She turned the phone off, tossed it aside, and tried to sleep. But then came a sound. Something dragging down the hallway carpet. Slow. Wet. It stopped outside her door. She stared at the doorknob. It turned halfway, then stopped, as if someone remembered they weren't supposed to open it. A voice whispered through the keyhole. It sounded like Mrs. Wright. "Don't let her in, dear. She's hungry tonight." Mia froze. The next day, she couldn't help herself. When Mrs. Wright left for groceries, Mia took the key again and went to the basement door. The steps groaned beneath her weight. The light was faint, a single bulb swinging. The walls glistened with moisture. At the bottom stood an old refrigerator, chained shut. Next to it, rows of mason jars lined the shelves, each filled with some cloudy reddish liquid. Mia's breath caught. Inside the fridge, something knocked back. Once, twice, she stumbled backward, hitting a table. A stack of old photos fell to the ground, photos of young women, each sitting at the dining table with Mrs. Wright, smiling politely. The most recent picture showed Mia herself, though she had never posed for it. She bolted upstairs, locked herself in her room, and pressed her ear to the door. From downstairs came Mrs. Wright's voice, soft and cheerful. "Welcome home, dear. I told you not to go down there." Night. The mirror fogged once more. Words appeared slowly as if carved by invisible fingers. "She's not alive." Mia backed away, shaking her head. "No, no." But then she saw the reflection behind her, Mrs. Wright, standing in the corner, eyes black, face too still. Only when she turned around, the corner was empty. Mia tried to leave the next morning, She packed her bag quietly, went downstairs, but the front door wouldn't open. The key turned endlessly, the lock refusing to catch. Her phone had no signal. The windows wouldn't budge. Then she saw it, a guest book, on the side table by the door. Dozens of names filled the pages, all in similar handwriting, except for the last one, written in fresh ink. Mia Turner, checked in. There was no checked out column. When the old woman appeared behind her, Mia dropped the book. "Why are you leaving so soon, dear?" Her voice was still gentle, but something about her eyes, glassy and motionless, was wrong. Mia stammered, I think I left the stove on at work." Mrs. Wright smiled thinly. "Oh, that's all right. You won't be needing work anymore. The house takes care of its own." She raised a trembling hand, and the lights flickered. The hum of the refrigerator echoed through the floorboards, like a heartbeat speeding up. The mirror upstairs cracked on its own that night, splitting Mia's reflection in two, and somewhere below, the refrigerator door unlatched with a soft, metallic sigh. A voice whispered through the vent above her bed, "Don't leave me down here again." Mia didn't sleep. She just watched the door and waited for morning. Though in that house, morning never really came. Mia didn't remember falling asleep. But when she opened her eyes, the world outside the window was gray again. Not morning, not night, just gray. The clock on her bedside table blinked. 12. Over and over, her throat was dry. Her suitcase was gone. Her shoes, too. And there was humming again. The same song Mrs. Wright always hummed, but deeper now, echoing through the vents. She sat up, trembling. "Mrs. Wright," no answer. Only the sound of footsteps, slow and dragging, moving upstairs. Something caught her eye, near the baseboard by the bed. There were scratches, carved into the wood. Words, barely legible. "Don't trust her. She's not alone. She's the house." Mia's chest tightened. She pressed her ear to the wall. Behind it, she heard faint whispers, a dozen voices whispering the same word in unison. "Stay." Her heart hammered. She grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight, and crawled toward the door. But when the light hit the door frame, she froze. The wood had faces in it, warped. Screaming faces, faint outlines of eyes and mouths pressed just beneath the surface, like something trapped inside was trying to get out. She ran down the stairs. The house groaned, the pictures on the wall bending and twisting. When she reached the basement, the refrigerator was open. Inside was nothing but fog. Cold white fog spilling out like smoke. The air was thick with rot and something metallic. And at the far end of the room, a shape moved. Slow, heavy, almost human. Mia whispered, "Mrs. Wright?" The shape stopped, then smiled, teeth too sharp, skin too pale, but its voice was hers. "You shouldn't have read the diary." The thing stepped into the light. It looked like Mrs. Wright, but her eyes were black pits. Her skin sagged in folds like melted wax. The mouth didn't move when she spoke. The sound came from behind her. "The house needs guests, dear. It keeps them. It remembers them." The chains on the floor began to rattle. The jars on the shelves started to shake. And the whispering rose again, louder, desperate. Mia stumbled backward, knocking over a table. Photos scattered everywhere. In each photo, she saw herself. Different poses, different clothes, but always the same terrified expression. There were dozens of her. Mia ran upstairs and locked herself in her room again. But the door pulsed, literally pulsed. Like a heartbeat, the walls began to breathe, expanding and contracting. She screamed and pressed herself against the window. But outside, there was no neighborhood, no street, no light, just endless gray fog. And in the fog, faint figures walked, all of them women, each with hollow eyes, each with a faint outline of Mrs. Wright's face overlapping theirs. She turned back to the mirror. Her reflection was no longer hers. It was smiling. "You're next, dear." The glass cracked again. Snap, 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 until the reflection reached out through it. A cold, wet hand brushed her cheek. A voice spoke from the hall, calm, tender, almost loving. "I wasn't always like this, dear. I was the first. The house needed someone. I stayed too long." The doorknob turned slowly, and Mrs. Wright stepped in, her head slightly tilted, her eyes glistening with that same dark liquid that filled the jars downstairs. Mia backed into the corner, clutching the broken piece of mirror in her hand. "What do you want from me?" Mrs. Wright smiled, her jaw cracking open wider than it should have. "To remember you." She lunged, the mirror shard slashed through her arm. Black smoke hissed from the wound instead of blood. Mrs. Wright didn't scream. She just whispered, "You'll forget your name soon." That's how it starts. Mia ran. She bolted down the hall into the attic, the only door she hadn't opened yet. The attic was filled with suitcases, old ones, dusty and tagged, each with a woman's name. Sarah, Eleanor, Jessica, Grace, Lydia. The last one read, Mia Turner. It wasn't dusty, it was new. She opened it, and inside were her clothes, her phone, her wallet. Everything exactly as she'd packed it the day before. The realization hit her like a knife. She'd never left. The house reset her. Every time a tenant tried to escape, it rewound them, rewrote them, made them forget. Mrs. Wright wasn't the landlord anymore. She was just another memory the house kept alive to lure new souls. Mia heard the hum again, a deep, throbbing sound that shook the rafters. From the walls, a voice echoed, hundreds of whispers overlapping. "Stay. Don't leave. We're part of it now." The floorboards began to split. Beneath them, something moved, something alive. The house itself was breathing. It was hungry. Mia screamed and threw the mirror shard into the floor. The wood splintered open, revealing a pulsing red mass beneath, veins crawling along the boards. Beating like a heart, Mrs. Wright's voice filled the room again, echoing from everywhere. "Every home needs a foundation, dear. Ours is made of memory and blood." The walls began to close in. Mia turned toward the window, her only escape. But when she looked through it, she didn't see fog anymore. She saw herself, standing on the lawn, smiling up at the window. That version of her waved and whispered something she couldn't hear. The floor cracked beneath her feet. The air grew thick with rot and smoke. Hands, dozens of pale, cold hands, reached from the floor and walls, pulling her down. She screamed one last time, but the sound was swallowed whole. The house fell silent. 1 year later, a for rent sign stood outside again. The paint on the old house was new, the windows freshly polished. A young woman parked her car in the driveway, dragging her suitcase to the front porch. Mrs. Wright, smiling, dressed in her perfect floral dress, opened the door. "Welcome, dear," she said sweetly. "You're just in time. The room upstairs is finally vacant." From the window above, Mia's face watched, pale and still, pressed against the glass, and as the new tenant stepped inside, the door closed softly behind her. The humming started again. The house keeps its own,